The e-cigarette industry has experienced exponential growth in the U.S. over the last 4 years.
And now, since it actually became like more of a hobby now, I think in the future it'll probably be pretty good. We created a family inside the vape community, and we love what we do. We try to keep away from tobacco as much as we can.
Many smokers say vaping is a lifesaver.
I smoked for 37 years. When my friend introduced me to this, that it got me to wean off of combustible tobacco and to e-liquid.
While health advocates say it's a gateway to tobacco.
The trend is now that a lot of teens that are e-cigarette users are moving on to traditional cigarettes.
Vaping, clouded by controversy on Southern Remedy.
Southern Remedy is underwritten by a grant from the University of Mississippi Medical Center and viewers like you. Thank you.
Technology is providing a new way to use an old drug, nicotine. E-cigarettes, known as vapes, have been on the U.S. market for 15 years. A vape is an electronic device used to heat flavored and nicotine-rich liquids into a vapor to puff. Few regulations created a strong market for the vaporizers and liquids, which has resulted in a $2.5 billion industry in the U.S., a new youth culture, and concerns from health advocates.
We've been in business since June 4th of 2016. When we expanded to a second location, I thought, this is a good idea, pool tables and a lounge environment. We encourage our customers to come in, hang out, talk with us. We want to have a personal relationship with all of our customers. So, dartboards, pool tables, a big enough atmosphere where we can have cloud competitions and things like that. It encourages that kind of community aspect, and that's pretty much what we go for.
There's a lot of vape shops that you can go to that are plain Jane, walking into Lowe's or something, where it's really, you have all your stuff, you choose what you're looking for. The lounge gives you more of a home setting to where you feel not pressured, where you feel like you can actually talk and get to know someone, have a one-on-one conversation on what they're about to do with their life. This is a big deal. Vaping is a big deal.
My basic nickname around the vape shop and the vape community is Vapey. I originally got the name from sitting in vape shops, and I was basically just coming up with different cool builds. The way I started vaping was, I was 18 in high school, and I was trying to show electricity current. And I ended up originally building my own vape. Went to International Science Fair, of course, they told me I couldn't do it at the time. After that, I kind of just got into the vaping industry. That was like back in 2014. So it's kind of been 4 years, going on to 5 now.
The lifestyle aspect comes into it being a hobby. And vape has such a wide range. You could be a person that vapes the pod systems, where it's just you take the pod, you hit it, and it's basically the same thing as for your cigarette converter. Well, then you have some that you're building your own coils for. These are batterized mods that are, basically metal with a battery attached to it, and electricity can do it. But you build a coil, you put it on there, and it sends electricity to it. Well, that heats the coil up. You wick that with cotton, and that's how you vape. When it gets down to how many different kinds of coils you can build, the different kinds of cotton you could use, the different kinds of juice you could use, different kinds of power and wattage output you can put to it to affect your flavor, whether you want to have a hot vape or a cool vape, or you want to blow a big cloud, or you want to have something that's less intense, or you want to do a lot of nicotine or a less nicotine, It's all about what you want to do, and I think that's where the diversity comes in and the conversation for people interacting with one another, and that's really what brings everybody together in a lot of aspects. With it being so new, it's an industry that has something coming out constantly. So you're always excited because there's always something new.
What we like to do here is definitely make sure that you know what you're doing, you know what you have, and we're going to educate you to the best of our abilities as pretty much a home being, as in we're related of some sort, that we could actually be on the same level, and we're not just someone up here trying to sell you something to potentially just get you to leave and never come back again. We want to see you again. We want to help people.
Vaping is done by using different types of devices. The devices are loaded with liquid, the liquid is heated, then inhaled. The liquids contain flavoring, and many contain nicotine. The first vaporizers were sold in the U.S. in 2007.
There are 4 things in e-juice. There's water, often nicotine, although there are a few brands that don't have nicotine. You've then got PG, propylene glycol. You've got VG, vegetable glycerins, and then you've got the flavors. The flavors vary dramatically as to what's in them. There are those few substances, but when you heat them, they change. And that's where the problem comes in. Propylene glycol in small doses is one of the vehicles that's in the puffer inhalers for medicines. And in small doses, it's fine. But when you heat PG, it changes into things like formaldehyde, other enhanced aldehydes, acrolein, which we know is highly toxic to humans. Same thing with VG. When you heat it, it changes into a variety of other toxins. And so what it started out as almost doesn't matter. It's what it ends up as that's most important.
Mike Jeffcoat, a vape shop owner and founder of the Mississippi Vaping Advocacy Association, says many of his customers, like himself, vape to cut down or quit cigarette smoking.
I smoked for 37 years, and about a pack a day, maybe a pack and a half on a stressful day. And when my friend introduced me to this, there was a little transition period for about 4 or 5 days that it got me to wean off of combustible tobacco and to e-liquid.
We're talking about both people's everyday experience and science. Everybody can point to a person who picked up a vaping device and quit using other tobacco products. But that doesn't mean necessarily that that's what made it happen, okay? So there are different kinds of studies that are done to look at these things. The strongest evidence we can have for this kind of area is to look at what we call randomized clinical trials. In randomized clinical trials, what we do is we take a group of individuals, we give half of them, for example, a vaping device that has nicotine in it, and half of them a vaping device that doesn't, but nobody knows what they're getting. And then you look at the quit rates. Most of the studies either show no effect or a short-lived effect of maybe a month, that while they're still using the vaping device, they may significantly cut down or stop using other tobacco products. But there's no evidence for long-term efficacy yet.
My wife, I'm going to throw her in there, she smoked for 22 years, and that also got her, she quit smoking, went to vaping, and then she no longer vapes at all. So she's completely nicotine or tobacco free. And the same thing with my son. He smoked for about 11 years. And, he's actually the first one who introduced me to the pen style vapes. But he is no longer smoking tobacco and is no longer vaping, tobacco free, nicotine free.
So another way to look at this is to just look at a bunch of people who decided to take up vaping and see who quits, right? When you look at that kind of study, there are clearly some people who do quit. Now, it's a small percentage, but we do see that occurring. The issue is that in a weaker study design like that, we don't know if it is the vaping device that's actually responsible for why the person quits. So let's say you smoke cigarettes and you pick up a vaping device and you quit. It could be the vaping device. It could also just be that you're highly motivated. Or it could be that you're doing other things at the same time. Maybe you're putting a patch on. Maybe you're taking a different medication. Maybe you're hanging out more with friends who don't smoke now, kind of thing. So there could be, that's the problem with those kinds of studies, that looking at the causal relationship is much more difficult.
There was a tremendous amount of hope that these would be very effective to help people stop smoking. The way that's looked at is the quit rates. But it appears that the quit rates with these things are no better than the quit rates with the other nicotine substitutes we have, especially if they're combined with some medicine that you can take as a combo.
Well, when we smoked, my wife and I were smoking at least a pack a day apiece, probably.
Have you ever thought about talking to your doctor about your smoking habit?
I have not even thought about going to the doctor to see about it. So, just never done it, never thought about it. Well, since we've started vaping, we actually have cut down on the nicotine level of the vape juice. So I feel like we're cutting back, and I know it's not good for these guys. Eventually we're going to quit, but I guess that's the plan, is to get off of it completely. Try to be a little healthier,
Using vape or e-cigarettes as a way to quit using tobacco is debatable. Even physicians groups in the United Kingdom and in the US don't agree. The Royal College of Physicians says vaping can be an effective way to help quit smoking, but is still potentially hazardous to your health. The American College of Physicians says vaping is not well understood and the health effects are unknown.
Until we have better data to really resolve some of those issues, it's really hard to give a straight answer to folks. But from my perspective, all of the new evidence as it's coming out continually makes vaping to us look worse and worse. There isn't data coming out saying, oh, look, new safety indexes that we can. It's always a new disease, a new symptom, greater levels of this substance or whatever than we were seeing before.
Now, big enough that we can do biopsies. Our main concern is that people get addicted to nicotine, and then this is going to lead to other problems. That's probably the chief concern.
I didn't vape to be popular. I was an addict to nicotine, and that was a way to get it. I thought vaping could help me not smoke as much. I'm not sure that I thought it would help me quit, but I thought it could help.
Vaping's very new. We don't have studies of people who have done vaping for 30 years and have not smoked cigarettes also. So we don't know exactly what vaping will do to the lungs if you do that for 30 years. The truth that I should state, so we keep some credibility with people who read on the internet, yes, vaping probably is safer for the lungs than cigarette smoke, because cigarette smoke has upwards of 5,000 chemicals in it that vaping doesn't have. But it's also true that we don't know.
Because we're trained as scientists, we have been very reticent to express alarm or criticize anything without having the data. And in this case, the data is not there. All the things that we're thinking are problematic with e-cigarettes are postulated on the basis of our previous experiences and knowing what these chemicals are. So we have made big mistakes in the past waiting too long to step up.
But when you look at the studies, especially these large epidemiologic studies where they're just following people over time and looking at that, the most likely outcome of a tobacco user who starts using a vaping device is that they become a dual user. So they're using both tobacco products and vaping devices, right? In the past, prior to vaping, when we looked at all the variable tobacco products that are out there, we know in the tobacco control community that whenever a person uses more than one tobacco product, the likelihood that they will quit goes down dramatically, okay? That may well be the case with vaping, but again, I don't want to jump the data here. We don't really know, but if it follows suit, like we've seen in other nicotine-containing products, we might expect the same outcome eventually, that it actually makes it tougher for the person to quit.
Smoking damages the lungs in several different ways. On one end of the spectrum, we have patients with chronic bronchitis. Some smokers tend to another end of the spectrum, more emphysema, where the lung is slowly broken down and they have large pockets in the lung where the lung's been destroyed.
I went to the doctor to get a checkup and learned that I had the beginnings of emphysema. And although I'd been told for years that I needed to, obviously I knew that, it was enough of a jarring to get me to finally say now is the time. Vaping never was enough for me to completely quit. I knew I would need other help. So I went to the doctor. I have now stopped vaping in an effort to, I went with a finality in this quit that I've never used before, which is I'm not gonna give nicotine a chance to keep me at all. So, and the rest is just habit.
Most of the attention on the risk of smoking is focused on adolescents or teenagers who are attracted to vaping because initially it's easier than smoking. It's not as harsh, flavors are added. And then people get addicted to nicotine. It's a very addictive drug. And studies show that as many as 30% or more of teenagers who start vaping end up smoking cigarettes. And that's obviously a concern for us.
If I found my kid with a vape pen, I would tell them sorry for the example that I gave first. And then I'd have to be dad and take it away.
In 2016, the Centers for Disease Control reported more than 2 million U.S. middle and high schoolers used e-cigarettes. The Surgeon General says e-cigarettes are creating a public health crisis among youth and young adults.
I picked up smoking from a former job, and I hated cigarettes. I hate the taste of them, and I want to do something else. The idea of smoking was nice, but I don't want to actually smoke.
I like vaping just because it's like fun and it's cool, and it's like an alternative to like smoking cigarettes. I don't really like that.
I chose vaping because like a lot of my friends did it, and I always thought it was cool, like the tricks you can do with it. And I prefer not to smoke cigarettes, and I just enjoy vaping. It's cool.
It's kind of a refreshing thing to do. It's really cool in the mouth. It doesn't burn. It feels nice. It's like drinking water almost.
I didn't smoke in high school, but like a lot of like other people did. I didn't want to do that, and I just see like a lot of other people doing it, so I just started vaping.
And I did not smoke in high school either, but I started vaping in high school like with some friends before I got one. And then I started hanging out with more friends who all had them, and I got one too, of course, because it's nice not have to use theirs.
Since I don't smoke cigarettes at all anymore, I don't really have the desire to smoke. It's just the vaping has a different flavor, and instead of eating or snacking, I could be vaping. And I don't vape all the time, but it's just something nice to do occasionally.
It's not as bad as cigarettes and everything, and you can choose like the amount of nicotine and all that.
It looks cooler, pretty much.
Yeah.
No one should be, I don't want anybody to think that vaping's cool and they should be vaping because they think it's cool. They should just do it because they enjoy the experience.
Vaping is now one of the new leading ways of delivering nicotine to youth. And because of that, it's something that we've got to address because these kids are ingesting nicotine at higher levels and other chemicals that can be very damaging to their health.
Kids are experimenting with these, and it's a big fad. Somewhere around 6 to 14% of high school students are presently experimenting with these, and the numbers keep going up.
The Youth Tobacco Survey just showed that we are at 7.4% of high school students using traditional tobacco products, an all-time low. I mean, it's actually below the national average. That's the good news. The bad news is about 11% are now using e-cigarettes or some form of vaping, and we have to address this trend before it takes off like it used to with tobacco. We don't want it to be at a 30% like it was when we started in 1998.
Nicotine is a highly addictive drug that leads to cravings and a physiological need to obtain more. Nicotine naturally occurs in tobacco, but with the juices used in vaping and with certain devices like Juul, nicotine levels vary. And nicotine can affect brain development until age 25.
Nicotine stimulates the release of endorphins, like you get when you exercise, and also dopamine, which is the pleasure center stimulator, when you inhale this stuff. So it is a very powerful chemical.
All Juul products have nicotine in them. Just in the last few months, they are in the 60% of the market. They are now called the iPhone of e-cigarettes. And that is really getting to be the vaping delivery mechanism of choice by teens.
Juul is one of the e-cigarette companies established before 2016 that sidestep regulation and have until 2022 to file public health and marketing applications. Juul devices are highly popular, and health advocates say it's too easy for kids and youth to get them. The FDA ordered the Juul company to disclose its marketing data, and public health organizations have sued the FDA.
The suit that was just filed by a number of medical organizations against the FDA to get their act together about restricting access to these products and continue to look at what's necessary, I think is a very positive move. But we're behind the curve on this.
I'm going Army Infantry, Airborne. I'm preparing for it by running. I was smoking cigarettes, and the first little training thing we had to run 2 miles. Like the first time I had recruited, they said, okay, we got to run 2 miles. I just got done smoking a cigarette. So we start running, I take like 10 steps, and I'm already out of breath and to like pass out and stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is the last cigarette I'm smoking. So I went and bought a Juul. I've been using that, and now like I can run 3 miles straight without like losing breath or anything. Like, it's great.
Predominantly a tobacco store, but we also sell some vapes. Yeah, we've been a authorized Juul retailer for approximately 4 months now. That is the most popular vape device that I sell. They think that it looks cool. It's tough to keep on the shelf. I got to order it twice a week to the tune of about $1,200 per order. So $2,400 a week worth of Juul, as opposed to maybe $2,400 a month of my other vape products.
Innovation and growth in the e-cigarette industry is happening faster than the FDA can monitor. Juul, which exceeded 60% of the e-cigarette market in May 2018, has the FDA's attention. It required the company to submit marketing data to understand its appeal to youth. A single Juul pod, which holds the e-liquid to vape, is advertised to have the same amount of nicotine as a pack of 20 cigarettes.
Most of my friends started out smoking cigarettes, and then they're trying to quit, and so they get on the Juul, and it definitely helps, like 100%. The one concern I do have about the vape is like the glycerin. You know, you're still inhaling something in your lungs, you know, that can't, you know, other than oxygen, that can't be healthy for you. But I can still tell of an improvement in my breathing.
According to the U.S. Surgeon General, as of 2014, e-cigarette companies spent $125 million on advertising. Ads, product innovations, and little oversight helped the vaping industry become popular. But regulations are now being imposed, and health advocates are cautioning consumers. Vape advocates say the e-cigarette industry is unfairly compared to the tobacco industry, and Big Tobacco is looking to expand its market through vaping.
The vaping industry was created not by Big Tobacco. Well, obviously, they realize this is a viable industry.
They've bought up several of the companies already. Many are hedging their bets, selling both tobacco and of the electronic variants as well.
They are taking an extreme interest in investing billions trying to scoop the vaping industry up.
They're going to win either way that this goes. There's no question about that. We always have to remember that the tobacco industry has lots of money, and they're always a few years ahead of us. They're researching things in their labs and stuff well before they hit the market, and then it's only at that point that we start investigating.
One of them in particular, Philip Morris, has come up with a e-cigarette that actually has tobacco in it, and it doesn't heat it hot enough to combust it, but it still heats it enough to make a vapor of nicotine and tobacco.
I'm a mom and pop shop. I'm a sole proprietor. I got 3 locations. It's kind of hard for me to compete at the level of money that they can provide to their lobbyists and grease the palms of the government. They have a very powerful team of lawyers, and they will do everything they can to try and kill us and promote their products.
You can't say, don't do it. You have to tell them how they're being made guinea pigs, if you will, by this industry. And they need to know the facts.
Vape is great, vape's a lifestyle, and if you get off cigarettes, you come to do vape, you'll live a better life.
I tell my patients vaping is to be avoided at all costs.
And I've heard people say that, well, vaping is safer than smoking cigarettes. And I don't know that necessarily that you can make that claim, because vaping hasn't been around as long as cigarettes have.
The FDA, they legally don't want us to be able to say that vaping is healthier than smoking. So, you know, it's in the freedom of speech, I'm going to use it. It's healthier than smoking. I don't care what they say. They can come talk to me about it. You know, the science is out there, and they know it. It's been around a long time.
We tell patients we prefer them to use the other nicotine delivery devices that we know are safer, such as nicotine patches or nicotine gum. Those have been tested, they're FDA approved, we know the safety.
Like I said, we got into this, my friends got into this, everybody that works at our company got into this for the betterment of people's lives. And if we were to find out that that's not what we're doing, then we'd have to seriously reevaluate our situation.
It's clearly something we wouldn't recommend people to do because there's just too much uncertainty and there's the risk that that may not be good for you.
It took a while before we understood that smoking cigarettes cause lung cancer. Now it's going to be 20 years before we know all of the long-term health repercussions of being an active vapor.
Give me that monitor.